It's Feel Good Friday on Live with Kelly and Ryan.
Welcome back. Today, we wrap up our Conquering the Q week with tips on how to deal with your quarantine and post-quarantine fears. Joining us now is author and psychologist, Dr. Eileen Kennedy Moore. Doctor, thank you so much for coming on. It's great to have you with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So one thing I wanted to start with, I know, Kel, we talked about this before, is we are news junkies. And I try and tell myself before I go to sleep, don't turn it on one more time. And I'm just not that disciplined. I do. So how do you suggest we handle all of the infusion of the news that's on right now?
Well, most of us don't need minute-by-minute updates of what's happening in the news. And if we're checking, that's going to ramp up our anxiety. So we need to pace ourselves and find the point where we're informed but not overwhelmed. For me, I try to check the news once a day, not first thing in the morning and definitely not last thing at night.
Oh, I'm the complete opposite of you. First thing in the morning, all day long. I only know that I've consumed enough news when I can feel my anxiety actually physically starting to attack my body. And then I go to bed watching the news and usually crying.
Oh,
is that wrong?
These are hard times. Is that
the wrong path I'm on? No, but seriously, what are because there's lots of like what ifs, right? What should we do about the endless cycle of what ifs going on in all of our minds? Because this is not just what Mark and I talk about, but our kids are saying, well, what if this? What if that?
What if, when will this? Right.
Exactly. Right. What if is the song of anxiety. And we really can't stop those what ifs from popping into our head. But what we can do is learn to answer them. Worrying doesn't help. That endless cycle of imagining every bad thing that could possibly happen, that's just going to get us more revved up. So what we might want to do is remind ourselves that right here, right now, whatever that scary thing is that we're imagining, it hasn't happened. Or we might want to tell ourselves, well, at least, and focus on the things that are going right in our lives. Distraction and taking action are two other ways that can help tame our worries a little bit.
Doctor, what do you suggest? So many of us have been in the same place for a long time now and are looking forward to getting out, to venturing out, to doing something, even if it's phased in, but also concerned. So what do you say to that equation?
There's a difference, and I think we're all feeling this, between crisis coping and chronic coping. So with crisis coping, we just focus on the crisis, we clear the decks, that's all we think about. But as the situation goes on and on and on and on, we have to expand our focus. And we have to start thinking about, well, how am I going to manage this over the long haul? We don't want to be dangerously casual, but we also don't want to be paralyzed by fear. So we're looking for that reasonable caution. And what that is going to depend on your particular situation and your location.
You know, there's some areas now that are relaxing restrictions and people are sort of emerging back into their lives. We, of course, we've been very fortunate that we've been sheltering at home with our family. So we haven't been alone or lonely. And we've all gotten used to snuggling with each other, sitting with each other. And it's very easy to get used to that. But then you realize eventually you're going to have to go outside back into the world. And it's hard not to reach out and touch people that you see and that you know. How do you train yourself, or how do you deal with the idea of going back into society?
It's hard. And we're all going to be figuring out what the new normal looks like. And as hard as it was to go into quarantine, it's going to be maybe even more hard to go out again. So when we're feeling scared, it can often help to take baby steps toward where we want to be. Maybe you've been home all the time. So maybe for you, the first step would be taking a drive to an uncrowded state or national park. Maybe you've only been eating food that you had in the house or could get online. Maybe you're ready to take a trip to the grocery store or to order takeout from a local restaurant to support them. But just do it with reasonable caution. So go at an uncrowded time, wear a mask, and of course, wash your hands afterwards.
Some people may be going back to work soon. It's something they're thinking about. Obviously, what are the steps of guidance you would give to them going back to the workforce?
That's scary. And you may not have much control about going back to work, but you can make sure that you wear a mask, that you clean the surfaces that you're going to touch, and keep social distance as much as you can.
What about people that have been sheltering in place alone and they miss social interactions, and maybe they live in a big city where the restrictions really are not haven't been as loosened up yet? So what do you tell people that really miss that human contact?
So I think this has really been so difficult for many, many people. Some clients of mine recently invited some friends over to their backyard, and the friends brought their own chairs, and they brought their own wine and their own pretzels, and they stayed 6 feet apart. So it definitely wasn't a normal get-together, but it was inching in that direction. If you're in the city and that's not as easy, maybe you do that at a park. But honestly, my best advice for everybody for getting through this is to look for ways to help others. Maybe that's going shopping for a neighbor or calling an elderly relative, or maybe it's giving to a charity or using your skills to contribute. We all feel better when we do our part.
Such great tips. And by the way, I never thought about wine and pretzels together. That sounds like a very, very good combination.
Ryan, where have you been?
I've been right here. Thank you so much, Dr. Eileen Kennedy Moore, for coming on. Kid Confidence, Help Your Child Make Friends, Build Resilience, and Develop Real Self-Esteem is available everywhere books are sold. Thank you, and we appreciate all the tips.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you, doctor.
Okay.
Stay safe,
Bye.
okay?